Talking about Marvel nowadays is so exhausting. It's genuinely draining to even bring up the ruins of what once were guaranteed successful projects that they now even somehow manage to mess up every single time. Even though people are going mad about it, you cannot discuss the fact that Daredevil Born Again was a little treasure to loot. And yet, they somehow couldn't. They just couldn't, Instead of doing what the fans actually wanted, Marvel decided to indulge themselves in their so-called creative vision, that uninspiring bullshit of artistic changes and their own taste, rather than sticking to what actually worked and what the fans were begging for. They thought that they were reinventing the wheel. Spoiler alert, they weren't. And even they tried to do what the fans wanted, but still couldn't. Now let me take you back all the way to Spider-Man No Way Home. When Matt Murdock was introduced, people went absolutely mad. The buzz around his tiny cameo was so powerful, it touched a point where Marvel realized, you know what, they're actually doing something great. We have this treasure in our hand, and that's when the realization struck them. They had something golden, something that could elevate the entire MCU on the ground level itself. And so they decided to create Daredevil's own season, or more accurately, their fucked up version for it, which unfortunately just followed the same miserable tone they set earlier. Kingpin getting knocked out by teenage girls and the walk of shame that Matt Murdock had during She-Hulk. This was the disastrous tone that carried into the final cut of Daredevil Born Again. But God graciously, the first writer's strike happened in 2023. That's when Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio finally had a chance to walk up to the Marvel executives and tell them straight up, this is pure shit. They told them directly, They understood that they had was some garbage shit, and within basically no time frame, under pressure and panic, they had to rework and reshoot almost the entirety of the series. And that's when everything came rushing back on the nostalgia train. The teaser, the trailer, everything was baiting nostalgia, Nostalgia not from a Marvel product, but from something Netflix had created years ago. Netflix made Daredevil something brilliant, something inspiring, something legendary. All Disney had to do was continue that quality, and they couldn't. They never could, I was still optimistic, I genuinely hoped somehow that among the 90% of garbage TV shows that Marvel has been producing, they could actually finally make something decent, something you could gladly get into and say, you know what, this is good. Oh my god, I was so wrong. You know what Daredevil Born Again ended up being like? It's literally like pre-boards, Remember in 10th or 12th standard when you wrote pre-boards? These exams were supposed to prepare you for the real deal, the board exams. But instead, they were just practice rounds, half-hearted and messy. That's what Born Again feels like. A rushed, jumbled pre-board version of what should have been a legendary TV show. There are few gracious parts that save it from being a complete disaster. So let's start from the beginning. The first few episodes attempted to tell a storyline of White Tiger. Now, White Tiger is a decent character, but that by no means justifies taking 3 full episodes out of 9 to flesh out so many unscattered storyline opportunities that never go anywhere. They just kept pushing the White Tiger's plot, and by the end, it meant nothing. No follow-up, no payoff, just abandoned midway like it was a filler. Ultimately, the grand plan in the episode 9s mean nothing for Daredevil or the White Tiger either. It's blatantly stupid to make that kind of decision, because it's very clear that the storyline was never intended for this version of Daredevil. Anyways, it went on. There were opportunities for Vincent D'Onofrio's character to become the ultimate storyline. They came, but the writers chose to ignore them until it was too late. Around episode 6 or 7, And oh my god, what even was episode 5? That bank robbery episode has to be one of the worst episodes I've ever seen in my life. It clearly reflected the mess they initially wrote for the season. It was so bad, I have no idea how anyone at Marvel thought it could work. Then there's Muse. Muse is such a character in Marvel comics, He's not just a random villain, he's someone Daredevil actually struggles to detect because of his unique abilities and insanity. But here, they reduced him to some madman running behind some woman, following some random message, and ultimately getting shot. That's it. And don't even get me started on the worst 3 categories I've ever seen in this series: Sherry, Christian McDuffie, and Heather Glenn. Sherry has literally no role in the story. He just shows up, tells Matt, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's impossible, and then leaves. He doesn't do any real work. Some minor footwork on the White Tiger case, maybe that's what he really practically did, but Instead, he's practically invisible. Then we have Christian McDuffie. Tell me just one single advantage she had. None. Foggy was literally the same character, but he brought emotional weight because he was Matt's best friend. Christian McDuffie brings absolutely nothing. Then there's Heather Glenn, Heather is supposed to be the love interest for Matt this season, and I am so surprised that with a single line of dialogue, a character could be hated so much. When Matt comes to save her, she says, "I saved myself." Excuse me, bitch. How the fuck did you save yourself? When you tried reaching for a gun 20 times while Matt was saving your ass by fighting off Muse, how did you save yourself then? I genuinely hope she isn't even in season 2. Zero interest, I have zero interest in her. And the tragedy doesn't end there as well. Frank Castle, the Punisher, is written so badly, man. He shows up, says a few cool things, and then just disappears. He gets caught, that's it. And don't even ask me about the Kingpin's ultimate plan. It feels so uninterested and small scale for a villain of his magnitude. They took so many episodes to build a business plan. Seriously, that's it? Then there's Daredevil himself, standing there saying, "Is this really happening?" After all of this, who is at fault? All of us. Because we literally kept hanging on to the hope that Marvel was going to give us something extraordinary. Instead, it's just another afterthought TV series they rushed into existence. And here's the kicker. Among the 90% trash Marvel TV shows, this is actually one of the better ones. I even enjoyed a few episodes, but it's so underwhelming, so hollow and so lifeless that you can't even call it Marvel anymore. Treat it like a separate entity, because Marvel knows they messed up. If they didn't, season 2 wouldn't be already rushing into production for a 2026 release. They're literally shouting inside the studios right now, desperate to fix it as soon as possible. Marvel, what more indications do you want that your methods aren't working anymore? You literally had one of the greatest superhero TV series ever made handed to you on a silver platter, and you threw it in the trash. It's not at any top 10 list or any top viewership ever. It's nowhere to be seen. Why? Because you couldn't match the passion, the depth and the brilliance that Netflix's Daredevil had. Hopelessness will always stab you in the back, Marvel. And you know why? Because you chose the woke train. You chose it to be woke. And just maybe you learn this lesson after you completely crash Fantastic Four and Avengers 2. Why? Because of your woke messages. Millions of dollars which you will lose. And then maybe you finally get it that if you go woke, you go broke. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, fight for the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.